Welcome everyone. We're having an interview here with Brent Gibson, the game director for Vessel of Hatred, and Aislyn Hall, senior systems designer for D4.
Systems designer, yeah.
Yes. So we're just gonna have a little chat. I will be asking questions about all things Vessel of Hatred. Since we had a lot of announcements lately, there's more to come on the 29th as well.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. It's good
Yeah.
to see you.
So, my first question would be, now that we have some more information about the Vessel of Hatred expansion, and you talked about, a lot of the reworks are coming to the game.
Yep.
Some of it is not announced yet, but what is the general idea behind what you are changing with what the game already has?
Yeah.
So this would be a very interesting topic. What about how the characters work? Are you changing fundamentally how some classes work? What about the skills and so on? So what is maybe the idea of what they're trying to do with the expansion?
So alongside Vessel of Hatred is the major progression updates that are coming. And, of course, you remember Season 4, The Reborn, we had significant updates to the itemization of Diablo 4. And these major progression updates that are coming in Season 6 are going to be of a similar scope to that, but for progression and character development. So pretty much everything you can see on your stat screen, we're looking at that kind of stuff. And a lot of this has to do with player choice and how you're facing challenges in Diablo. So an important thing to us is that no matter what activity you're playing, you can tune that to a place that's comfortable for you, whether it's in the overworld or in a specific bespoke dungeon or activity like one of our new ones, Dark Citadel or Frost Undercity. We want everything to be tunable to your character's current power level, and also tune the rewards to be appropriate for that as well. And so if you think about, for example, the kind of philosophy behind the Profane Mind page, how you can choose to opt into a harder difficulty, but because of that, you get more rewards. We kind of tried to take that, extract its essence, and then take a bird's eye view look at the whole game and apply that to a lot of different activities.
I think another thing worth pointing out is that we know that customization and control over customization is something that is really important to our players. So we're introducing new things like the mercenaries that you have more control over, leveling them up and choosing specific skill paths for them to go down. And then using a system that we're calling the reinforcement system to add them in almost like you have an additional skill on your skill book, right? So you can say, you can choose a mercenary like you're here who has some tanky-like abilities, and you can tell them, hey, I want Rahir to come in when I'm on low health, throw up and take some of the damage. So it's actually rounding out some of the existing builds that we have with all the various classes.
Okay. So since you're on the topic of the mercenaries, just a real quick excursion. So you mentioned that's almost like an extra skill.
Yeah.
Was this also intentionally done to diversify builds and improve setups without necessarily actually adding an extra skill to the bar? I know a lot of people always ask for something like an ultimate skill button or these kind of things, or also just I guess the limitations of console players cannot have that many buttons.
Yeah,
So
we're always using
was that designed with this in mind?
Actually it was. I mean, the usability with keyboard or mouse versus controller is something that we're always trying to make sure that we're keeping stable and very, very accessible. But we have systems in the game that give us the opportunity to give you more abilities in really interesting ways. And I find it really fascinating to have almost like a coding system to say, if this, then that happens. It's super intuitive and easy to go after and gets you that additional power in ways that maybe you didn't expect, and but it's extremely powerful.
Yeah, it definitely sounds way more fun than typical mercenaries that I know from D2 or D3 that are just kind of following you around, maybe giving you some passive buffs on aura or so, and that's about it.
And players don't want to have to manage a follower that's coming along with them, and so it's like we're giving you that control, and that you can determine the way you want it to work, and then it's just happening, which I think is really, really elegant.
Yeah, quite excited to see how this will work. I want to circle back though to the progression and the difficulty that you mentioned.
Sure.
So you said that you want to give basically scaling difficulty to everything in the game, similar to what Mind Cages does, like with Helltide. Yeah, I think it's like a very good system to introduce. First of all, people have been asking for something like World Tier 5 for ages, and it kind of like solves this problem that you have like the power progression up to a point, and then like World Tier 4 is designed for leveling and not for like decked out endgame characters, and that was a huge issue with like whispers and so on. So I think a lot of people would probably like that. And it's the expectation then that everyone with every build is going to progress through all of the difficulty levels, or like how is that going to work? Like, is everyone supposed to reach the highest level, or are there like maybe certain steps that are kind of the minimum requirement, let's say, to acquire endgame gear, and other people that go beyond that, or just like faster, like with the Helltide Mind Cages?
Yeah, sure. So we've kind of philosophically thought about it in terms of I guess you could call them breakpoints, where you reach certain points in the difficulty and challenge that you're facing where you've found new content to engage with. Like, for example, the Dark Citadel doesn't unlock until your character is at effectively a certain power level, but then it's going to continue scaling. Whereas something like Chaos Undercity would unlock much earlier in your experience, but then also continue scaling. And with that said, we want to make sure that every build that, like, in the entire game can reach effectively all the content that the game has to offer, but then afford the opportunity for really powerful builds and blasters like you, for example, to go further and further and further, and hopefully effectively never reach an end point.
Yeah, one of the philosophical things here too is some of the changes that we're going to see is that we know we want to make the game more difficult because our players are becoming more skilled, but we want to make sure that control over the difficulty feels nice and smooth. And so some of the changes we're going to talk about in a week are going to be that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that is very well done with the difficulty scaling is the pit, actually.
Yes.
Because the pit is effectively infinite, at least currently, until we find some game-breaking bugs with the Spiritborn. But also, like, the rewards don't really go up much at some point. Mm-hmm. Like, there's like this kind of soft cap at 101, and it's kind of like the target to reach. Yeah. And it's like a very nice target to have. Like, personally, I like trying to make a build work so I can do 101 easily.
Right.
And this is like something that many builds can do. And some builds are faster and slower, okay, but going much beyond that doesn't help too much in terms of the progression.
Right.
And this is like similar for this difficulty system as well.
Yeah, so when players reach those breakpoints that I was talking about, we philosophically think of it more as, at that point, you are improving your efficiency, effectively your economic efficiency.
Yes. But there's no next item tier unlock or something.
Right. We don't want people to feel like they have to become the ultimate Giga Blaster to unlock new content in the game and only be able to see that content on like streams or something. We don't want that. But we also want you to feel rewarded for being able to reach those new tiers of progression, even if they're in smaller ways than those breakpoints provide you content.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting, especially when you then apply it to some of the more in-game systems like the Dark Citadel. So the Dark Citadel is like this new co-op feature. Yeah. Basically, people call it raids. I guess you don't call it raid, but this is effectively what people expect.
Sure.
And like if you dare have like some super high-end difficulty that is like that people really have to like try like super hard, have like many wipes and stuff like that. I think some people that on the higher end will really enjoy that, and then it's going to be like the first clear on the highest difficulty or something that people will be going after.
Yeah,
is there also? I want to ask a question specifically about this. So, is there also like some feature that was coming with that, like some kind of competitiveness, maybe that would go along with that?
We want this to feel more like a community type thing where it's like our tryhards are going to go in there and try to beat it in a certain speed or be there first, but we don't want everybody to be intimidated that that's the mechanism on how to play this new content. So right now we're being more community oriented, and so I don't want to spoil anything, but like if you play through the game, we want all the community cheering for those people who are on the bleeding edge of being it for the first time, but also rewarding everybody who is participating in the activity in its early infant stage. as well. So
I mean, you haven't announced any leaderboards or anything like that, but people have been asking for this. You know, like personally, I would love to see that. And it's not just everyone needs to be like a super try-hard, high-end blaster to enjoy leaderboards.
Exactly.
Because people just want to see, the competition, right? People want to watch. People want to, see who's the first to 100, who's going to be the first to clear, and who's the fastest to clear the Citadel. There's so many ideas behind it, and I wonder, like, is this something that you have on the radar at least?
The leaderboards are definitely on the radar, and it's really an exercise of looking at all the activities that we're adding in Vessel of Hatred in conjunction with all the changes that we've been making to the activities that are already in the game. And so finding out where this exists, I think, is something we need to consider on how we do that after we get past the era of this first expansion. It's definitely on the radar, but we are in a position where we still need to evaluate exactly how we do it.
Yeah, Diablo is fundamentally a cooperative game, of course, but because you go so far and push your build so far to the limit, it doesn't reach a point where, like you're saying, like it evokes a sense of friendly competition. As we continue to enhance and hone in on making that efficiency game and making our activities better and better razors to judge your build by, I think it's going to put into clearer focus how creating those kinds of razors to judge yourself and others by possible in Diablo 4.
Yeah, okay. It sounds very exciting. If that moment ever comes, then I'll be cheering at least.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of talk.
And you're also introducing another feature that would also be very suitable for these kind of leaderboards, like the City of Curas. Actually, a feature that we haven't even talked about before the latest announcements.
Yeah.
At least as far as I know, where I haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
And additionally, a speedrun PvE competition, right?
Yes.
So this would be probably the number one content for this as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, when we release new features like this, we want to release them in a very full but pure form and get it out there and let people run through the content so we understand how the content works. So once you start talking about things like adding a leaderboard, we really want to understand how the mode is performing in a live environment before we start adding layers like that to it, because people are going to be very specific about the win criteria. Right?
And what people are enjoying most about the activities.
And what they're enjoying most. And so that gives a little time to adjust before we start going into those situations. So for those who play it, we've been reaching out to the community a whole lot to get a lot of feedback. This is just one more of those places that let's see how it goes, and then we'll go from there.
Well, one thing kind of connected to that is you are adding a lot of new types of content to the game. Like there's kind of natural, horizontal progression, I guess. You can do this, you can do that. And now, for example, we just got the Infernal Hordes in Season 5. Before that, they got the Pit, and you can farm one or the other. And I guess it's going to be similar with Dark Citadel and the City of Curas. And at some point, are you thinking that maybe, we have enough now? And this is that we should rather focus on more vertical progression? Or
you're seeing that the conversation is starting to shift that way, right? Like some of the changes that we made to Helltide was like, hey, we know we got a really great node here. We've learned a lot in Season 2. How do we boost that? So we're doing that bit by bit. I think you're going to see us returning to some of the existing nodes and doing some fresh new updates to shake up the meta a little bit. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing doing stuff like that for a very long time. We have no intention of not projecting.
Yeah. So I think that the iteration and improvement on Helltides were kind of a proving grounds for what does a Diablo 4 activity look like at its peak, effectively, or how far can we push it in its fun and its efficiency. And we got it into a good spot, and now we're seeing with these learnings a lot of new activities come out. And the activity team, they took so much feedback and they did a wonderful job on improving the Helltide and then taking that and applying it to these other modes they're making. And at a certain point, what we're looking to do is flesh out the game with a variety of activities that all accomplish different things in the sense of I want to go to the Curas Undercity to pay my tributes and find the specific attributes I'm looking for, and I want to go to the Pit to grind out those rewards. And eventually I think we are probably going to reach a point where we're very comfortable and happy with the core amount of activities in the game. And at that point, I would imagine we will see a lot of focus on, revisiting activities that we'd love to plus up.
Yeah. That sounds very interesting, especially like with the existing systems. Like I think the Helltide rework was like pretty unanimously loved by everyone.
Yep.
Everyone enjoyed the Blood Tides as they were called in season 2. And then the Helltide update.
Exactly. And all of that was based on the feedback that the community was giving us. We're finally in a mode where we can actually look at a feature and get that feedback and make changes that we know are going to work. We absolutely know are going to work. So now we've got a very robust suite of activities that we can do that with. So I challenge the community, keep on talking about what you love, and we'll continue to update things as we go.
Okay. And how much are you in favor of, like, for example, adding exclusive rewards to certain types of content? Now that we have so many different things to choose from, how much do you want to force people into doing a certain thing so they can grow their character versus, okay, you can find anything anywhere, but this one is maybe a bit better for this purpose or so?
Yeah, fundamentally, we don't want to force anybody to have to play the game, right? We want to make sure that our systems are set up in a way where you can play the way you want to play, and you're going to be gaining progress all the time and finding the things that you want. When we do bespoke things, it's like let's have some fun with cosmetics.
Yes.
So like, there's a currency in the Dark Citadel that you can get that you can spend on cosmetics in game at a vendor inside the Dark Citadel that's aimed towards the first cosmetic. Like, that's really cool. It's a lot of fun. You can actually show off that you've played enough of this very hard in-game mode, and I've got enough currency to have the rewards to kind of show that off to my friends.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking forward to something like that.
Exactly.
Because there's like the store and you can buy cool cosmetics, and people are kind of saying, the free cosmetics are falling behind the paid cosmetics. And if they're like on the same quality level, then I guess a lot of people will love that.
Yeah, but we don't want to tell someone that's like, hey, you have to play with a friend in order to get the best gear in the game, right? Like, that doesn't feel good for those folks that have a different play style, and we have a lot of play styles in our fan base, and so we're going to continue to toe that line and make sure that everybody can play the way that they want to play, and find other ways to show off that exclusivity that doesn't impact balance.
Yeah, and when it comes to vertical power progression like Masterworking or your glyph ranks, etc., you actually touched on it. Like, we want there to be primary sources, but we don't want them to be exclusive. And that's generally the philosophy that we're looking to apply, so that you can go to a specific place and that that's where you can most efficiently upgrade your Masterworking on your gear, but it is possible to acquire those resources elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have that exactly right now in Season 5 with Infernal Hordes or the Pit. You can do both. Infernal Hordes is pretty overpowered, okay? I guess you just have to find a balance.
We do.
Yes.
And then at least you can choose between two modes. So it's something.
Exactly.
And I think that's also very important for people to some people just personally I just go to the Pit sometimes just because I like it more than the
totally.
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yep.
It's really important, when you're playing an ARPG, that the most efficient way to play evolves. Because if we get to a point where the best thing to do in the game, hands down, is one activity forever, eventually, doing that day in, day out, you'll get a little boring.
I think exactly that problem actually is arising right now in Season 5 for a lot of people. Like, they just, Infernal Hordes is so efficient that everyone goes there and all day, and you just think, it's a nice activity to do, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10% of the time, but not 80.
And we see that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Now we have enough information where it's like, okay, we understand the result. So how do we shake up the meta? How do we add some variety? How do we look at maybe adjusting this in a way where the repetition doesn't feel so bad?
Right, and this just circles back to, we're looking to flesh out the game with core activities so that there are enough vertical progression points and there are enough activities to support that, so that there's always a different place you can go to progress your character, so you don't end up with these problems of stale activities.
Yeah, speaking of vertical progression, so right now we have a relatively long progression path, at least for your first character of the season, where you level up, and then you start, maybe grinding out some uniques on the bosses, then you're going to start grinding your mythics. On the way there, you're going to work on your masterworking. And that's already quite a journey there, especially like last season with the Pit. Masterworking took a lot longer. And the question is now maybe, how far do you intend to go with this? Like, is there something coming after Masterworking at some point? Is it like even more like a long-term progression goal to work with?
Yeah, I do think it's important to make sure that we have long-tail journeys in the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm getting at is, not just grinding GA mythic items.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's basically a slot machine,
Exactly. Yeah. So this is definitely a hot topic with the team right now, and I think we found that the progression, we've made so many changes with the progression right now that it's like, I think it's time to just pause for a second and see how things are going. We're going to have the progression updates that are going to be coming out, and we're going to announce that in a week. But I do think this is a state of like, okay, take a deep breath. Where are we at? What's working? What's not working? And so before we just run headlong into adding more features to that journey, I think we need a couple of downbeats, and then we can actually visit it with real intent at that point.
Yeah, I think the release of Vessel of Hatred and how the community reacts to all the changes and new features that are coming will be kind of a meditative point for the team in a way. Yeah. Where we're going to be evaluating how everything is going and how the state of the game looks, and then applying that feedback to the seasons going forward.
Okay. And what is your idea behind changing builds or like changing strategies that people find? Yeah. Like nerfing the OP stuff. If you notice that day 3, they are done with everything. Highest difficulty, Dark Citadel is down. So what are your thoughts behind that?
Yeah, we definitely don't want to do things that are removing the fun away from players, but we're always looking at trying to maintain that harmony as best as possible. Clearly we'll find things that are outliers that are like really game breaking. I saw it on your stream when you did the Spiritborn stuff. It's like, oh, that's a lot of Razor Wing.
Don't worry, it's not even close to the most OP thing.
And so, I think that this is a part of being live service, of trying to find and maintain that harmony as best as possible. I will have to say though, every ounce of feedback that we've gotten along season 1 through 5 right now, it's going towards making sure that the foundation of the modes and features in Vessel of Hatred are in a really solid state. So that's not to say that players are going to find something. And we're totally cool with that. Like, I think we're in a great open dialogue right now, but I'm very proud of the state that we're in. So philosophically, it's like, yep, let's.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult because in case something really overpowered arises, and then you're just kind of like letting it slide, and then at some point you're like, okay, this is too much.
We're gonna have to address it.
So it's always like a fine line there. Before people get really used to it. And
it's like the barbarian changes. Like, we're getting to a point where it's like, okay, it's time to start taking a look at some of the barbarian changes that we just recently did. And how do you do that with finesse? And I think really for most players, it's like, it's not about just changing things, but it's like trying to find the harmony in those changes and explaining them.
Yeah.
Right? And if we can get to the why and communicating about the why, most of the times it makes sense and people are really good with it.
Yeah, I think a big emphasis of the PTR for that's coming up is we want to see what people can do to break some of the things that are coming, so that we can release Vessel of Hatred in the best state possible.
Right.
Because we don't want to have to nerf things mid-season. That's not we want to. Like that. No, we want to move away from that. And the best case scenario for us is we reach a state where the game can exist for season 6 as is, and then come season 7 we can reevaluate and change at that point. Because we don't want to take toys away mid-season. That's not our goal.
Speaking of the PTR, I have a question actually. So you are doing a PTR for 2.0.
Yes.
It's like for the season 6 patch. Yeah. So I suppose is it like season theme? Is that even planned right now because the Vessel of Hatred is coming out?
This season does have a theme. But the thing that we're really interested in testing is the progression changes.
Okay, so they will be on the PTR.
The progression changes will be on the PTR. So we really want people to join in.
Okay, so the PTR is the new progression, but with old content basically.
Correct.
Okay, so no Spiritborn and all that.
Right. You're gonna jump in. You're gonna take a look at the way, but you will get some of the additions that are coming along for all the original classes. So you will be able to take a look at the new skills and that along the way.
It's very focused on the infrastructural changes that are coming alongside Vessel of Hatred.
Yeah. Is the party finder in there?
That's a great question. We should look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
If the party finder made it into the PTR, because what we're doing is we're being very selective about what we put into the PTR this time because we want it to be focused.
Yeah.
So we can follow up on that. And
Okay.
see where we're at.
It's fine. Yeah. All right. But I guess people would be very intrigued to try it out. And
Oh, it's a big PTR
Oh,
to go
yes.
check out.
Oh yes.
is it going to be longer than usual or just 1 week again?
It's going to be this. We're running the same course.
Okay.
What I want to do is initially see how things are going, and then we can talk about.
Yeah, I guess it's just like it's a very tight time schedule right now.
There you go.
Party finder will be in the PTR.
Party finder will be in the PTR.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like very tight schedule, right? It's like
Yeah.
we have like 6 weeks out or so from the
Yes.
expansion. The
Yeah.
PTR, I don't know, it's probably gonna be like 1 2 weeks or something, and then there's like just like this last moment changes. I guess you're gonna be able to do, and then
Yeah.
go forward from there.
So the team, as we continue to iterate, we end up gathering a lot of feedback on pain points with the content that we're creating that emerge during internal development.
Yeah.
And we kind of brace ourselves effectively for the PTR, and we have an okay idea of like, okay, this is like, we think that this might be a problem, this might be a problem too, and then we gather all that feedback, and then the reason it's going to be a week is because, like you said, we're only 6 weeks out, so we're going to need time to scramble away and do what we can to make the adjustments.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one is about mercenaries. Have you thought about people that don't actually like mercenaries? And is there going to be like any kind of option for them? Or is it something that at least you would consider, maybe giving them some kind of, there's like lone wolf, type of effects that exist in other games, for example, or something like that? Is that something that you want people to have a mercenary at all costs, or?
Well, so mercenaries are the type of thing that we understood that there's some people that don't necessarily index on having them follow your rule. That's why we looked at something like a reinforcement system where you can spec into the mercenary and have them come in and do a specific.
But it sounded like you
thing.
have one permanent anyway, and then you have a second one for reinforcement.
You can use it as reinforcement too. So you can have your reinforcement and not a fowler. You can have everything. You can have nothing. You don't have to engage with the system if you don't want to.
Realistically, it's just going to be a nerf, though, right? So for yourself, so.
Exactly. I mean, for those players who understand how the power stuff works, you're definitely going to want to be investing into them. But I'm very curious how you guys feel about something like a reinforcement system. I think it's very innovative. I think it's a very clever way of creating a new way of engaging content like that. And so we'll see.
It reminds me of World of Warcraft Legion. You had like these class hall followers that could also come in and do a special ability.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I had a connection to, and I like that. So let's see how this will be. But personally, I don't like the idea of a permanent follower. So.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. One last question: the Dark Citadel. What is the expected kind of like weekly time investment? Let's say for a full clear, for like a party that knows it. Let's say at 1 month in.
Yeah, so you're going to get more and more efficient as you go through this. We want to encourage players to come in weekly. We're going to be doing a new weekly cash refresh every week. So are you asking about how much time it is?
Yeah, how long should a clear take for like an experienced party?
I think something that's interesting about that is because we're looking to allow you to continue to challenge these modes on harder and harder difficulties, you're eventually going to get to a point where you've reached an efficiency level at a certain stage. We're like, okay, we actually need to make this harder for ourselves, which is going to like then bump down your efficiency a little bit. And it's probably going to take quite a while to get to the point where you've reached the end state and you're like, we're now just seeing how fast we can do it completely. That's all that it's about.
I feel bold enough to talk about this.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk.
Okay.
It's not
I
crossing
didn't hear
your
the
ears.
question.
Yeah. In playtesting, we have a wide band on how quickly it is to complete this, right? And so we've seen stuff like newcomers taking a little over 3 hours to complete the activity, and we have QA testers that are clearing it in just over an hour. And so one of the things that we're really doing is taking a look at what that cycle looks like. But I absolutely know that once the community gets their hands on it, they're going to be like, yeah, hold my drink, let's go. We'll see how fast we can whittle this down. So,
Yeah, I'm certainly excited for that.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, everything we plan for based on having hundreds of people play it at the studio sometimes pales in comparison when you get millions of people playing it. And so we'll see where this goes, but the idea is that this is really difficult dedicated content, and I can't wait to see some of the speedruns to see how quickly you can get it done.
There will be ample efficiency opportunities. I'm sure you will be able to go through it very quickly once you know the ins and outs.
Yeah, it's okay. But it's very fun though, and thanks for the insights.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, we're gonna wrap up this video. So thank you so much, Brent and Aislyn, for the interview.
It was great.
And for everyone watching, hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and maybe I can follow up at some point. Yeah, thanks so much.
Sounds great.
Hell yeah.